Hello, everyone. Glad you are watching the video. This will not be a very long video today. I do want you to take it seriously as I do with all the videos. But this in particular is one of those things where I'm going to present to you a bunch of facts, not opinion. I'm going to present to you a bunch of facts. And for some individuals, they get really upset at this particular topic. And I'm fine with you not agreeing with me. What I'm not fine with is you throwing out information that's just has no basis or whatever. And honestly, you shouldn't really get upset with this information. I'm not attacking you personally. I'm just presenting facts to you so that you're aware of really what's happening out there. And then if you don't like it, just realize this is the reality of it. And if you disagree with what I'm presenting to you here, you better have some facts. I actually have a couple of slides in here that I've added because I had students say, well, this, that, and the other. And of course, they don't know what they're talking about. And I've had to, point out, hey, that's not even the same thing. And you get a zero. So I have no problem with you throwing in more information into your answers. Just make sure it's factual, that it's not some kind of opinion. I don't know why people take their phone and stick it into their personality. I will tell you honestly, if I had my dream come true, I would have a Microsoft phone, but they stopped making them. The interface on those phones is just fantastic. If any of you ever used one, then you know what I'm talking about. You probably miss your Microsoft phone. But they were a measly 10% of the world market, which is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And they couldn't handle it because they're used to being bigger than that. So they quit making them. That's the honest truth for me. And we just are left with two phone makers, and they both have their issues. That's the honest truth. So what this is about is mobile privacy. So let me jump over to the presentation. Put my little face up here and make me a little bigger so you know that I am still here. All right, so security, safety on mobile. We store more information on our mobile phones than we have on our computers. And it's amazing to me that people have not switched their mindset on trying to keep themselves safe and secure on their mobile devices. They will think a lot about their Windows device, their Windows PC, and whether or not that's going to get hacked and so on. And then they don't think about the fact that every photo they have is on their phone, right? All of their contacts are on their phone. They have tons and tons of information on there. And we need to start switching that mindset and realizing that our main computing device is our mobile device. It is our phone. And then we use, our PC for something particular, writing documents and that kind of thing. But, everybody's always got their phones out, right? So this is about security and safety on mobile. Now, what you have to realize is that there is a difference between how Android functions and how iOS functions. So when Apple started to develop their phone, and the reason that they did develop a phone was because iPods are where all their money came from, and everybody was starting to buy phones that could play music. And so they either were going to evaporate or they had to do something else. So they created a phone. Android was soon after that. And yes, that upset Apple quite a bit because Android just kind of copied what Apple was doing. But the honest truth is we've been clicking on icons, right, for the last, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years. What is it now? Icons have been around a long time. So it's not like putting your finger on an icon on a phone was this revolutionary thing. You did that with your computer, except you usually didn't touch it, right? All right, so Android malware, and malware again is any kind of software, that's why it's got that "ware" on the end of it, that's malicious. So it could be a virus, could be a Trojan, could be a lot of different stuff. So Android malware is worse than Windows is. So, well, again, people are very concerned with their PCs. They're not as concerned about their mobile devices. And if you have an Android device, you need to. So this information is straight from what company? Malwarebytes, I think, is where I got these screenshots. But Over 10,000 new samples per day. Now, what that means is that when there's a virus out there, they will take and mutate that virus, the people that make and play with this stuff. And so samples means new iterations or versions of viruses. And this is not the same. A new malicious app is released every 7.5 seconds. I tell people that most applications that you see in the Google Play Store would be considered Trojans in Windows. And again, what a Trojan is going to do is it's basically going to say, well, I'm a music program or I'm a game, but in the background, it's doing something else that you're not thinking about. And so it's a huge, huge thing there. So the total number of all malware for Android devices that's a very big number, right? That's huge. And then this one kind of breaks it down to the annual comparison. And now, why doesn't that happen on iOS? Every once in a while, you'll hear about a virus on iOS, and it gets a ton of news, right? I mean, you don't hear all the news. You'd have the news every single day about the latest malware that's on an Android device. And on iOS, that's the ones you hear about. You know, if there's a malware, oh, you know, iOS, you better be worried about your phone, because if you're standing in it, and usually the malware is not that big of a deal. And when they have malware, they patch it very quickly. So it's not that iOS doesn't have its problems. The way they do things is different. And that's because all apps are examined, and that is good and bad. I mean, there's some really Apple makes some really stupid decisions when it comes to what they allow on there and what they don't. And it makes no sense half the time. But one of the good things that comes from it is that they're scanning for programs that are going to take data that they shouldn't be taking, that a game shouldn't be out there watching your browsing history, right? That kind of thing. And so they scan for that physically, right? Yes, they use computers, right? They don't have a team of 1 million people looking through the stuff. They just have computers that flag things, and then they go through and look at it and say, what is this thing doing? And they don't allow it in the store. So if it's not in the store, then you can't buy it. You can't get your machine infected. Shouldn't say machine, your device infected. All right, and then when they went over to mobile, they realized that, well, you know, a lot of the problems that people have on a PC, you know, a desktop computer, is because we've been working with those systems since the early 80s, and they're not as secure as they could be. So instead of strapping in the security after the fact, let's just build it more secure. And so the apps are sandboxed, and that causes some problems too, because what it means is that you play in your own sandbox, right? So if we were a bunch of kids, we put each kid in their own sandbox so they can't interfere with each other. That's what that's referring to. So we're going to put an app in their own boxes, and we're not going to allow them to talk back and forth. They can't share some of that data. I can't have an app that takes a screenshot and sends it to some other app. That's disallowed. And so the problem is that honestly, there are apps on Android that are more functional than they are on iOS, because on iOS, they don't allow the kind of trading back and forth. But at the same time, it makes them more secure. There are apps on Android. I think it was Rice University. It was a big university, and they actually did not release what applications did this. They just said that on these Android devices, there was apps that everybody had. So I would assume it's Facebook, Snapchat, that kind of stuff, that would actually take screenshots of what you were doing every so many seconds and send them to them and others. They didn't really release who that was. And I could understand why, because those are some very powerful people that you're basically saying, hey, we found out that you actually take screenshots of what's on people's screens and then send them to yourself and other people. Now, you really have to understand security to understand why would you take a screenshot. But just real quickly, somebody who goes, oh, well, I'm in this messaging system and it's encrypted, so I'm safe, that screenshot gets around that encryption. Right, you're right. That encryption is up on this app, it goes all the way down through the phone, goes out, goes over to the other device, and now they read the message. So all that data is safe. But if you're up here and you can take a snapshot, now you can see what they're doing. right? So let's move on. I wanted to show you some examples. Here's YouTube. So this is Google's own product. Nothing comes for free. We hear that all the time, and that is the truth. The end user license agreement tells you what you agree to give up on an Android device. We're very used to seeing these agreements. You know, you install some application on your computer and you have to go, okay, I agree to that. And we're used to that being them protecting themselves. Like, you promise not to take this program and sell it so that you can make a bunch of money off of it, that kind of thing. On Android, it's not that. On Android, it's when you install this application, you agree to let go of this data. And so you need to know that. And this is right there. I mean, you could, when you hit install on something, there's your more information, and that's what I pulled up here. So if you get YouTube, they want to know the device ID, that's that hardware number, and your call information. This allows the app to determine the phone number and the device ID and whether the call is active and the remote number connected by the call. So they're monitoring your calls just for having the YouTube app. That's the data they're gathering that they're making money off of. I got some examples. I love the fact that Android, drives me nuts that you can't do this on iOS. It really does. That you can change its look and feel. You can change how you want that to be. And that's what this is on the screen, is a product called Nova Launcher, and it costs $5. And you'll notice it requires no special permissions to run. In other words, you paid them $5 and you're good to go. This is also Nova Launcher, and it will do that device history, the activity of the device, which apps are running, browsing history and bookmarks, look at all that stuff. And then uses one or more of phone, your call log, charges may apply. What? Well, come on. Most people don't really pay attention to their phone bill. And if it went up 30 cents, it went up 30 cents. And nobody even notices. It'll probably be 6 months before anybody goes, hey, that's 30 cents more. Right? So what they're saying is, if this is put on a phone, then you're giving them the right to actually call a number that will charge you on your cell bill. Now, this is the same company. Tesla Coil Software. And of course, the deal is that nobody really thinks about this. And so they see both of these versions in the Play Store, and they're like, why would I pay for this when I could get this for free? And they never look. This is part of the information. You could actually, this is a screenshot, but you could scroll down and see their list of other things they're going to do. Here's another 3D launcher shell. It looks at your contacts. It figures out where you are. That's why I don't use Facebook on my iPhone, because it tracks where you are all the time, burns through your battery too. Charges may apply for this one as well. And then this is just some games, arcade classics too. You think, I'm just going to get some games, but it wants access to your photos, your media files. It wants your Wi-Fi information, like how are you connecting to the internet. All that data, all that information is worth something, and we don't think about it, and we don't really care. But you need to realize that is what you're giving up when you do that. Helix Jump, that's just a game. It had been downloaded millions of times, and it wants that same stuff. Now, the data privacy settings in Android. The data settings in Android is not about privacy. So this is the one that I had to add, because I got so many people saying, look, right here, you can go to, the stuff and you can change it, right? Privacy and safety, there's data usage right there. How are they going to use my data? That's not what it's about. It's about the data on your cell network and how you're using that channel. That's what that's about. And so it doesn't have anything to do with that. Now, they have added some privacy. And so you need to look it up, but it's only there for those of you that have, I think within the last 2 years, have the latest Android operating system. And so if you're going to be doing that, right, then you need to be getting one of those expensive phones. Most people, the reason they use Android is because Apple doesn't give you anything cheaply. And so they just get a cheap phone. And what does it come with? Android. That usually doesn't come with the latest OS. And so usually you don't have these features. These are newer features that have been added. Now, what I wanted to show you is some of the stuff that Apple's doing that is also causing um, Android to do some things, which is good. That's the good thing about competition, is that they'll kind of put each other in a situation to do something different. So most people are very aware. You've seen the Apple ads. They're like, hey, you don't need to be tracked all the time. They've kind of made it a way to sell their devices to more individuals, saying, hey, if you're worried about your privacy and constantly being tracked, then maybe you should use us and not the others, right? Which they mean Android. So these are Apple's new privacy screens. What was happening, of course, is that they're really keeping the bad stuff out of their store by looking at them. But then once you have launched an app, it starts to go out to the internet and do this stuff that's much harder to track. So they forced all the makers, right? This is WhatsApp, and they forced them to actually tell you what they're going to do. So data that's linked directly to who you are, purchases, location, your contacts, identifiers, usage, user content, contact information, financial info, right? This is WhatsApp. That's the encrypted way of talking to people. And the honest truth is, to get onto a different track here for a minute, Facebook bought it, and then they told people they were actually going to keep everything that everybody talked about in there, just like Snapchat, right? Snapchat basically, you take a snap of whatever, and then it disappears. Well, it disappears for you. They record it forever, right? That's the user content. So that's data linked to use. There's data used to track you. Here's Facebook. So data used to track you, identifiers, contact info, other data, and then this is all linked to you, browsing history, user content, all that stuff. So as you're using Facebook, this is what they're doing. And so that's been really good. And Android, Google has said they're going to put the same thing in place too. So at least we as people can see what they're doing, right? They're doing all this stuff, being a little more upfront about it. And there's just some more examples. Here is Microsoft's OneDrive, contact info, identifiers, diagnostics, user data, user content, and that's linked to you. And that's because that's where you store all your files, that kind of thing. So I put that in as an example because some of it makes total sense. Here is, Google's mail product, and search history probably doesn't need to be in there, right? To give you email, they don't need to know your search history, but they do. Just kind of as an example of this is what these places are doing. All right, now here's some other Apple stuff you may not be aware of, other Apple privacy features that I hope spread across the entire industry. Email location hiding. So if somebody wants to know where that email is coming from, they'll actually mask that so that it won't track you. iCloud alias creation. In other words, I'm going to share with you a file, right? You can do that out of Google Drive. You can do it out of iCloud. You can do it out of OneDrive. Lots of different services, Dropbox, right? They'll create an alias so that the person can't actually see what your iCloud ID is. Safari location hiding and elimination of cross-site tracking, meaning if you use Safari on your Apple devices, if you have that, right? Lots of people go, oh, I'll download Chrome, and they use Chrome on their Apple devices. We've never been able to figure that out. In case you're wondering, Chrome was the fastest like 10 years ago, but they haven't been the fastest in a long time. But it's one of those things, right? When I talked about the history of computers, once something gets to that acceptance level where everyone is using it, then that just becomes the reason why people use it, right? Why do you use Chrome? Most people would say, I don't know, because that's what I used in high school, or my friend told me to, or whatever. So in Safari, they try to hide your location, and they eliminate other sites tracking you. That's across different sites. And then Safari private relay, meaning that they'll really hide who you are. So, and that's going to tick off Google, that's going to tick off Facebook, that's going to tick off a lot of companies that make money off of you. And then on-device speech recognition, meaning that what you say is kept on the device, it's not sent out. And that's something newer because the processors that we're putting in these mobile devices are much more powerful. So in the past, it wasn't powerful enough to be able to interpret what you said on your device. But now they are. And as I said, Android is upping privacy. I wanted to make sure I taught that. But because they make money off of that data, right, they're always going to be a little sly about it, which is what people have found over and over again. That they say one thing and do another, because that's how they make their money off of you. I know that because they sent me a card in the mail, and I stopped using most Google products. I use YouTube, right, because I have to use my videos, put my videos out there. But I stopped using them a long time ago. I used to love them. They were my fave. And then they sent me a card in the mail, a really nice card that said, hey, let us put this device on your network so we can see what you're doing, and we'll give you 500 Google bucks a year. So I didn't do anything about that. Other things you should know about Google. We already talked about that. It makes money off of you. Advertisements are only a portion of how they make money. Lots of people go, oh, they look at all your data so that way they can advertise more directly to you. That is true, but that's not the only thing they do with the data. They are the farmer and you are the crop, right? They're taking data off of you, so you're important to them that way. Me and my brother have a website. That's it. If you want to go to more information about all of the little infractions Google has done over the years, I'm still building the list. So if you have something that you would want to add to that, great. But lots of you don't see this a lot of times because how people get paid is through Google. So you don't want to tick them off. I'm not getting paid by Google, so I just think it's interesting to find all these things in other countries that they're getting sued over. All the different stuff where their employees are leaving because they can see what Google's doing with that information and they don't like it. Just a note on home devices, and then I'm going to tell you, okay, is there anything you can do on Android to actually become safer? So we'll get to that in just a second. Most home devices, cameras and other things, do not respect your privacy. They harvest that audio and video. They force you to do that. So you got the special doorbells, right? And they record all that and they keep all that and they own all that. Smart TVs and streamers, they track everything you watch, everything you do on them. And again, maybe you're fine with that. The whole rest of the world seems to be fine with it. So you're like, great, I'm fine with it too. That's your decision. But you should at least know that that is the reality. That's not propaganda. That's actually the way it works. And I always try to choose products that just respect my privacy. I don't really like the Apple TV that much, but that's what I use because they don't track that stuff. And what they do track, they don't sell out to other people. They just use it for their own little information. You know, like, hey, you like this show, so maybe you like that one, that kind of thing. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with the whole world having it. And that's really the difference. Like a lot of people will say, oh, well, everything's being recorded. And honestly, if you want more information on this, you can talk to me about it. I talk about it in other classes, but there's layers of networking and security. And no, not the whole world is getting your information from everything. I'm okay with a company using my information to make their product better. I'm not okay with them selling that or giving it to the government without letting me know that that's what they're doing. There's some big differences out there. Now, how do you keep your system safe from just this stuff that's out there? Well, you need to realize that if you have Android and you're going to really use it, like I'm putting the apps on there, man, I want to use this thing, because some people don't, right? They get Android, they do their text messaging, and then really web browsing, and that's all they do, right? But some people are like, I want this app, and they're using the apps. Well, make sure you get virus scanning. AVG's out there, Sophos is out there. Get a well-known virus scanning program, pay for it, and put it on your phone. I don't know how many people have helped clean off malware off of their phone, but you need to have virus scanning software on your mobile device if you're going to install all those apps. Now on iOS, you don't. And so that's a big scam. You can go out there and buy virus checking software for iOS, but it's not doing anything because it can't do anything. Again, they sandboxed all that stuff, so it can't control anything or do anything about anything that it finds. On Android, it's really not, doesn't really work that way. So you really can get a virus checking software and it'll work like it does on Windows or on Mac. It'll scan through and go, oh, this, oh, you just launched this app and this is what it's going to do. Are you aware that it's going to take this information? It's awesome. Get a good virus scanning software program if you're really going to use Android to help keep you safe. Know that that's what you have to do. If you have an iOS device, know that you don't have to have virus scanning software. That's a scam. That's a way to get more money. Hey, buy this and we won't do anything, basically. All right, so if you have any questions, then let me know. Ask the questions and I'll make another video and send it directly to you.